Okay, we're back here as Makers Machining again at Burton Arts Pattern Works, and he's going to give us a little demonstration on how a pattern is used in the foundry. So Art, it's all yours. Take her away.
Okay, what I have done here for people who don't know anything about molding or foundry work is I made a model, should we say, of a flask. And
What's a flask?
A flask is the piece that they put around the pattern to make the mold. So here are make-believe patterns, and in the middle here is a runner where the metal runs in. So what they'll do, these patterns are just mounted on a piece of plywood. So what they'll do is they'll set this up in the foundry, put the flask over it, they'll powder this so that the sand doesn't stick to the patterns, and then they will carefully sift some sand in there. Then they start dumping sand in, say with a shovel. Pack it down tightly. So now they have a complete mold, and then they'll strike it off at the top so it's level. Now this is full of sand, and you have your mold on the bottom side. They take the whole thing, turn it over, do the same thing again on this side. Powder it, dump the sand in, pack it down tight, wipe it off level. Then they'll stick a round tube here. This will be the sprue that comes out through the top that they pour the metal down into.
How big in diameter would the sprue be? These are not real large pieces, but
on a piece like this, maybe an inch and a quarter, inch and a half.
Okay, you got to get some volume of metal going through there.
And yeah, it's got to be big enough so they can hit the hole with the molten metal.
Yeah, because when they pour that, they've got a crucible that's got all the molten metal in it, and it's got two handles that are about 6 feet apart, and two guys have to turn that thing and tip it and pour it out of a spout manually into this.
And they don't want the molten metal to be running all over the floor and all over their boots.
That's another point there, because that molten metal skitters across the floor like hot BBs across a concrete floor. It really moves.
Right. Then they will take this mold, they will carefully lift it off. Now picture it, it's full of sand, and on this surface they'll have the cavities that were made by this. They will then lift this off, set it aside, and it will have the cavities made from this side.
All in sand.
Right. And if there's any cores involved, they will now set the cores in place, the sand cores that will core out, let's say, the inside of the casting.
On your board here, this could be a core print here, correct?
It could be, yeah. Or it could be part of the casting.
Okay.
As well as this. Then they will take this part, which once again is filled with sand with the impression, and they will take it very carefully, set it back over the top, and now this is all sand with a hole in it.
Now what color is that sand usually? Is that black?
Well, it starts out being the normal color of sand, but it can be reused.
They put a little bonding agent or something in there?
And it eventually ends up, it looks just like fine black dirt.
Okay. And if you notice here, these pins on the molds, or mold halves or flasks, they line everything up so when your casting is made and you take it out, you don't have lines where it looks like your two halves have shifted apart from each other. So
you can't have a mismatch.
You're actually eliminating the board.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Forget about it.
Everything comes together.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. So pour the metal, and then they take it apart, drop all the sand and dirt, whatever you want to call it, on the floor, and then just break the dirt off, and there you have your castings. And the castings will be attached to this gate. They will take it over to the saw after it cools. They have a big bandsaw, and they will saw the gates off. And then they'll go over to a grinder and they'll grind off whatever is still left on here to make the casting.
Big snag grinders or belt sanders, that type of thing.
Right.
Heavy duty stuff, because these are castings. They're metal. They're pretty hard material, and there's rough edges on them. And to get those little flare-offs ground away, the flashing, it takes a little bit of work to do that.
I might say too, if you have a kid that doesn't want to study, get him a job in the foundry for a while.
Right.
After that, he'll be glad to study after that.
Plus, let me add to that. Don't ever look down at a foundry man, because a foundry man is just as much an artist. Let me say this: a good foundry man is as much of an artist as anybody. We've gone in foundries where they couldn't even begin to make what we wanted. We now have 2 foundries that can make anything, and that's because they are good.
Yeah.
And so we highly respect our foundries
Yeah.
and the people who work in them.
They'll go the
Absolutely.
extra mile.
Yeah.
But it's not the most glorious place to work.
Oh, it's dirty
It's
and
just a dirty job.
smells, but what they put out is incredible. If just to go back a minute here, I think the Bronze Age started about 2000 BC, and they would be making castings back in those years. That's one of the basic ways of making goods is through a foundry and making castings.
They've been making castings forever.
Yeah,
And if you
yeah.
stop and think about it, it's kind of mind-boggling when you think of what they had to work with. They basically were self-taught.
Yeah. Well, you've
we
got to
have
get the
spent-
raw metal to refine it so you can
Right.
melt it and pour it and have good quality
And I think
metal.
a lot of times for a mold, they dug holes in the ground and they used the earth for their molds and poured it in there. And Bert and I have spent 62 years making patterns, and we still learn every day.
Yeah.
I've gone to a foundry where they asked, hey, could you teach me how to do this? And it took me 62 years, and I'm still learning. So I guess the
Yeah.
answer is no.
Yeah. There's always something that's different. You guys probably see that, especially with your hobby here of making patterns for these unusual antique vehicles. The various things. Bert was showing me a picture before, and this might resonate to some of you, that you guys had made a pattern for a casting that's the anchor on the U-505 submarine.
Not really.
Okay.
They brought the original casting here, the original anchor.
Yeah.
Set it right there on the floor. And then I made
Copy.
an exact copy of it, full size, to put back in the ship. Because as the ship is on display, they wanted the original anchor to be in the memorial room for the people who died in all of our wars and so forth
I see.
on the ocean. And they can walk up and touch it. But they still needed an anchor in the bow of the ship. So they painted it silver blue, gray, and I even made the wooden chain. And they hoisted it up, and it's sticking out of the bow of the U-505, and it looks exactly like the original.
So that's a wooden anchor on there
Yes,
right
right,
now, but
right.
it's painted up to
Yeah,
look
if
like
you
the
look
real
at it,
McCoy.
that's a wooden anchor.
That's quite a story right there.
You can walk in there and tell the people at the museum, I know that's wood.
Because now we all, this is a little secret here, can't tell anybody, we all know where that anchor is on the U-505 submarine.
Right.
And I'm going to do a little promoting for that museum up there at the Museum of Science and Industry. You go in there, that is a fabulous exhibit of an old World War II submarine that was captured by the United States Navy.
It's
I don't
the
care
only
where
one.
you live, it's
Yep.
worth the trip to go
Oh,
there.
it is a fabulous place. They used to have it outside the building, and you'd walk into the submarine. What'd you say it weighed, Bert? 700 tons?
Moved
So,
it around and dropped it 40 feet in a hole.
yeah,
And
they
built,
put
the
a new.
Germans built thousands of submarines. Only one was ever captured, and that's it. It's
Yep.
sitting there, and it's beautiful. The museum spent $33 million on that
I think
new
that's the
display.
only one that exists now.
And that was
It's-
15 or
it's-
20 years ago too that they
Well,
changed
it's 10
that over.
years ago anyway, but the 33 million was worth every penny of it.
Oh,
because
it is.
a fabulous.
It certainly is.
display.
It's just it's a haunting place to go and see. It's really a great job having an opportunity to make something like that for the museum.
Well,
That's
it was
really
an honor.
fantastic.
It was an honor to be asked.
Yep.
Uh,
Well, it's because you guys are true craftsmen and you can make the unusual because you've got so much talent in making these patterns and castings. It's amazing.
Well, I also made new patterns for the aluminum treadway that you walk on when you walk through the ship, because so many million people have walked through it in the 50 years that the museum has owned it, that they were wearing out the aluminum plates and they didn't want to destroy them. So I made a new pattern, and almost all of the plates now that you walk on are new. And then Bert and I both made a couple of pieces for the Wright Flyer that's
Oh,
in
yeah.
the museum.
Yeah.
A couple of engine pieces for that.
You all know who the Wright brothers are, right?
That's correct.
Wilbur and Orville Wright.
Yeah, that's
So.
correct. So
How about that? We're in a spot here where all these two gentlemen here have been making patterns to keep history alive.
We know who the Wright brothers were, but we weren't personal friends.
like Ronald Reagan said
I wanna
about
make
George
that clear.
Washington. I knew him. I knew George Washington.
Yeah, like me and George Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
okay.
dedication of the submarine was June 4th, 05.
That's 13 years ago
Yeah.
then. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you went and looked it up?
I got the invitation in the office.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, well, we were invited to the
So
big
watch for your
celebration.
invitation in April of June 4th.
And the nicest part about the celebration was they had, I think, 7 or 10 of the German seamen that were on that boat when it was captured.
Really?
They had them here for honored guests.
Well, didn't they
And,
get one of those Enigma machines out of there too?
Well,
that
that's what
That was the
Yeah.
reason for the
For
capture.
capturing
broke
it.
the code.
And they towed it 2,000 miles across the ocean, and the Germans never knew it. They thought the ship
Keep it
had been
secret.
sunk. And all the sailors, of course, were saved. Nobody died, and all their families thought they were dead. Well, when the war was over, guess what? We're not dead. Here we are. And
That's quite a story. They got a lot of books and information about that at the
dedication,
museum.
I was sitting next to an old man talking to him, and it turns out he was one of the boarding parties.
Really,
yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing what those people had to go through in time of war.
Antique cars, antique boats, and antique airplanes.
That's right.
And we're antiques.
Takes one to know one, right?
We just looked at
Okay, I'm going to shut this thing off here. It looks like it's about lunchtime here, so maybe we'll go out and grab some lunch here. Maybe we'll take a few minutes and come back and look at some of the machines the guys have here in the shop and get those posted out to you. But what a treat to be with you guys today here. The smell of the pattern shop and all the different things that you've got. A lot of sawdust around here, but that goes with the territory.
You
So.
should have seen it yesterday.
Oh, you did some
it up.
cleaning?
Yeah,
You
we
did some
cleaned
cleaning
it
here, huh? Yeah, I know. Bert had quite a bit of stuff laid out here when I first walked in this morning, and Art's got all this stuff that he brought in, especially that little sample flask that he made. So thanks very much for doing that.
You bet. A clean workshop is not a shop that's producing anything.
I agree with that. Okay, we'll sign off for a little bit here and talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.